Welcome to the unit on Introduction to Apparel Manufacturing. In this unit, you will be introduced to the apparel manufacturing industry and an insight into the history and origin of the industry. You will also get an overview of the global market as well as the glimpse of the industry in India. This unit comprises of two modules and a final review section that invites you to reflect on what you have learned. By the end of this unit, student will be able to understand the history and origin of the apparel manufacturing industry, understand the apparel industry in India. In the first module, you will get an overview of how apparel was manufactured initially and the impact of the industrial revolution. Food, apparel and shelter are the base of pyramid of needs for life. Apparel is one of the basic necessity of a human being. Before the invention of sewing machine, almost all apparel products were locally made with hand stitch. Apparel was manufactured by tailor in most towns that could use the make-through process or a single garment for customers. Ready-to-wear garment, though present, was limited in variety. During that time, jackets and coats were known as outerwear or undergarments were purchased using pre-defined sizes. Here is an example of apparel. Sewing machines emerged in 19th century. They helped streamline the production of clothing. During the Industrial Revolution, apparel production was mechanized with sewing machines. Soon manufacturing shifted from small setups and small-scale industry-based production to mass manufacturing. Production systems become more sophisticated with the introduction of assembly line based manufacturing. Clothing production, on the other hand, continued to be made by hand. After the introduction of sewing machine, there was rapid growth of the ready-to-wear apparel business. The American Civil War was a crucial event in the chronological development of men's ready-to-wear apparel. At the beginning of the Civil War, most uniforms were custom-made in workers' homes under government contract. As the war continued, apparel manufacturers started building factories to increase production to meet the growing demands of the military. The mass production of military uniforms compelled the expansion of standard sizes. After this war, military measurements were considered to create the commercialized sizing for men's apparel. The bulk production of women's apparel developed slowly. During the 1920s, generally women's apparel continued to be made to order. During that decade, factors such as development of industrial production techniques and the rise of advertising industry, the growth of an urban professional class, and the development of national markets accessed through chain stores and mail order catalogs contributed to the success of women's ready-to-wear apparel industry. RTW apparel was depicted as up-to-date and fashionable during those days, as the new consumer industry swiftly redefined the way American customers reviewed mass-produced products. American women began accepting ready-made garments for their wardrobes as these ready-to-wear merchandise were cheaper, affordable and up-to-date. Most importantly, they were in tune with current fashion which could keep changing with fashion trends. However, RTW garments were found to fit poorly. The main problems faced during that time with ready-to-wear garments were regarding the fitting, drape and silhouette of these garments. Inadequate data about body shape, measurements resulted in absence of a standard size chart and sizing system. Thus, manufacturer produced its own sizes. Manufacturers were using the same size with different dimension of apparel. This eventually led to additional cost of alteration, correction of merchandise and also return and replacement of large volume of products. Ultimately, these resulted in increased cost for end users of RTW garments. This problem in standardizing led to the first large-scale scientific study technique of women's body measurements for pattern making and garment construction. The main purpose of this survey was to find out key measurements of a female body. These measurements were important to predict other body measurements. These techniques of measurement were provided the basis for standard sizing system for women's apparel. This is a standard sizing system chart. In this module, you will get an overview of a global market and examine the apparel industry in India, the various categories, its nature and size, as well as the various developments in recent years. The United States of America, the European Union, China, Japan, India are the biggest markets for apparel. This is also the major hub for apparel consumption. On the other hand, apparel production is primarily concentrated in China, India, Bangladesh, Vietnam and Turkey. Demand for MMF yarns will grow faster than demand for natural fiber yarns. Knit fabric and apparel are performing better than their woven counterparts in global trade. Asian countries like China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Thailand and Indonesia are among the leading countries in terms of installed machinery capacity. China alone has a share of around half of the world's total installed capacity for spinning and weaving machinery. The textile and apparel industry continued to be the second largest employment generating sector in India. It offers direct employment to over 35 million manpower in the country and with an additional employment of 60 million manpower in the allied sector. Total employment figure stands at 105 million manpower. The consumer wardrobe has changed from only need-based clothing to occasional specific dressing. It's generally become more detail-oriented. Women shoppers are gaining more importance with their higher spending power and requirement of specific clothing for different purposes. The growth of apparel e-tailing is fueled by the changing lifestyles of domestic consumers and increasing penetration of technology. The Indian domestic apparel market is expected to grow at a CAGR of 9%, higher per capita consumption. Favorable consumer demographics and increase in prices will drive the growth of the apparel market in India. Currently, menswear is the biggest segment of apparel market. Kids wear, women's wear are growing faster than menswear segment. Among kids wear, girls segment has the highest growth area. Denim, activewear and t-shirts are high growth category in men's wear segment. In the women's wear segment, denim, innerwear and t-shirts are expected to demonstrate relatively higher growth rate. In the boys wear segment, growth rate is highest for denims followed by winter wear and t-shirts. In the girls wear segment, growth rate is highest for denim followed by winter wear and t-shirts. You have come to the end of this particular unit. To summarize this unit, you have learned about how the manufacture of apparel began and the impact of the industrial revolution. You have also received an overview of global market, country-wise share of global production, apparel's contribution to India's GDP, the size of the apparel industry in India, both domestic and export segment-wise, product-wise, category-wise, as well as market projection. You have also gotten a glimpse of the employment scenario in Indian apparel sector and reviewed recent development in Indian apparel industry. Thank you very much.